My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Where are you in your life right now? How much of your life was pre-patterned by your childhood experience, your relationship with your parents and family, and how your young mind, heart, and soul were shaped by that relationship? Was there joy and security, or pain, fear, and uncertainty? Are you re-experiencing those patterns in your adult relationships, and are they positive, loving, and affirming, or something else? These are especially difficult questions to answer during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Is there a way you may live your best life now and in the years to come? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Lily Sanders, is known as the locksmith to the heart. She's a noted author, expert media contributor, and life coach, awarded one of the 15 top coaching experts in New York City. Noted for her recently published book, Truth to Triumph, she eloquently demonstrates in her writing and recent speaking engagements how we can navigate through life situations without losing ourself. Lily's most recent project is her new podcast called Beyond the Current Situation, where she will be giving back to others by sharing insight from thought leaders and entrepreneurs from around the globe. Lily Sanders' passion is for humanity and thrives on helping others live a life at a much deeper level. Her website is lilysanders.live, and she joins me this week to share her story and the tools we all may use to manifest success and happiness. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Lily Sanders. Welcome back, Lily.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Great to be speaking with you today.
And it's great to have you back with us. And please accept my gratitude for joining us at this really difficult time.
Yes, of course. There's no better time actually now, because most people are home and we have the blessing of the internet and all these digital, devices that we have. So it's a blessing that we can get together even in this global lockdown.
Absolutely. We're never alone. We're always together, be it digitally connected or connected through other means. That there's always a way of getting in touch and staying in touch today, which is a blessing. Yes. Yes. And by the way, congratulations are in order because your book, Truth to Triumph, was awarded the 2020 Independent Press Award, Distinguished Favorite. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely an honor. Was really excited and very grateful for that award for sure.
For our listeners meeting you for the first time, please share your personal story and how coming from a troubled home, you actually ran away at a tender age and joined the circus.
I laugh when people say that. I know it's I didn't actually run away, but it was a dance audition. It was Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. At the time, I was auditioning for many different dance opportunities, and that was a gig, and it was for a 1-year contract. And I won that audition, and I had to pack up 4 seasons of clothing into one bag and fly down to Venice, Florida, where they picked me up and took me to what they call winter quarters, where we had all of our learning choreography and getting the costumes custom tailored to my body and my shoes. And it was just, it was a 1-year experience that was definitely a life experience, I will say. And then previous to that, I had, like anyone else, and I've said this just recently in a recent podcast, is that tell me anyone who really has had an upbringing that has not had adversity. The problem is what I find is that we're always calling it dysfunctional homes or dysfunctional upbringing, but really it's really quite normal for many people. Everyone has a story, right? Everyone. And so, yeah, my story is my upbringing was not the most desirable. And I did have adversity, and I was really able to overcome that by focusing on what I really wanted to be. I truly believe that what we cognize, we become. But how do we turn that cognization into a real plan? And that's the real runaway, running for your life, right? To your life, rather.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who have meeting you for the first time, just briefly share your personal experience as a child. What happened?
Yeah. So I was raised in a domestically violent home. And so that really was very difficult because there's not much that you can do, or, back in those days, and I'm going to date myself, Victor, but in those days, really no one discussed domestic violence. No one really did. And you didn't really go to your school teachers. You just didn't do that. And it was something that really was not, there was no real awareness. It wasn't discussed. And it really, I wound up using ballet class as my sanctuary, because that was the one place I was allowed to go, was to dance class. So going to the studio once a week or twice a week was a real outlet for me. That's where I started to begin to mold myself, or at least start to look inside my heart as to I'm more than what's going on within these four walls, and this is not going to be me or my life. And so I wound up, fast forward, auditioning, and I was on a roll. I was just getting auditions. So I was a showgirl with Ringling Brothers, and I did Star Search with Ed McMahon, and this was all within one after the other. So I was really on a great roll. And about, I kid you not, 15 years later, and I had been in a 10-year relationship that was great, and we just kind of separated or went our own ways as great friends. But then after that, I found myself in a volatile, in a marriage that was, there I was in domestic violence. And you talk about those patterns. I know you talk about that a lot. And I thought, how could this possibly be that I would marry someone like my father? How could that be? And so now it's climbing back out of those trenches again. And then there's all of those feelings that go on internally where you're almost disappointed in yourself. Like, how could this happen? But truth be told, it's really all about seeing yourself and seeing your life as so much more, and seeing yourself as so much more important, and just taking your power back. And I just, and that was what I did. I just kind of took my power back, and I never looked back. And I've been extremely happy, and here I am. It molded me to where I am today and who I am today, and love helping people get beyond any life situation, including this pandemic.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of the things that you experienced. When you would go for your ballet classes, what did it feel like to be dancing for you? Was that liberating?
It was creative. It was liberating, yes. Yeah, it was completely liberating. That's actually a perfect word. It was liberating, but it was also allowing me to feel something so much deeper. And how do I explain this? Here's a quick story. When I was tapping, I was a little bit older, and I was in the city. I was in Manhattan, and I was taking tap class with just the most amazing tap master in the world, Bob Audie. And I remember I was challenged by what he was trying to teach us. And I remember him saying, pretend your body is the instrument. Don't listen to the music, but be the instrument. And it clicked, be the instrument. And I just kind of became the music that was like that was creating it, as, because I was being the instrument. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So it's sort of like a transcendent experience.
Yes. Yeah.
You sort of leave your physical self or not leave it, but incorporate your physical self into this energy of motion and movement and music.
Yes.
Very liberating.
Yeah.
Very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And very healing also.
Yeah, absolutely. And much was the same. I found the same when I went into, after my dance career, I segued into acting and I did a lot of live theater on stage. Different methodologies I was studying, one of them is what clicked with me. And that was the Meisner method. And that's all about presence. And little did I know that all of that knowledge that I obtained from very hardcore classes and being on stage, little did I know that this was going to be valuable for, every day of my life after.
Absolutely. My wonderful guest, Lily Sanders, she's the author of Truth to Triumph, A Spiritual Guide to Finding Your Truth, and we're talking about all the work that she's doing these days in coaching others who've come out of abusive relationships into finding love for themselves and success. We'll be back with more of Lily after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
So I'm a cat. And I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
During these times of worry, fear, and uncertainty, a calming and soothing voice may help you relax, clear your mind, and help you sleep. This is Victor the Voice Fuhrman, and for the first time, I'm offering my voice for your well-being. I will craft a personal guided meditation to suit your needs. My fees are very reasonable, and I can provide your personalized guided meditation quickly. For more information, please send an email to voice@victorthevoice.com. That's voice@victorthevoice.com. Blessings, my friend. Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Lily Sanders. She's the author of Truth to Triumph, A Spiritual Guide to Finding Your Truth. And before we go on with some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, Lily, you also have a book called Soul Bread. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Soul Bread it's actually a very, very fundamental, practical book it's an ebook that I offer, and everyone is encouraged to go on my site and download that for free. It is it's a book of affirmations. I selected 12 thoughtful affirmations that I feel are really those core affirmations that we need to do, morning and evening.
Wonderful. And that's for free at lilysanders.live, correct?
That's correct.
And that's LILYSANDERS.live.
Perfect.
So we were talking about your background and your experience coming from an abusive home, a physically violent and abusive home, and how it mirrored some of the relationships that you've had in your life. Is that something that happens with many people who come from dysfunctional and abusive homes, that they later on mirror that relationship in their partners that they choose?
Not necessarily. To be honest with you, I think that is kind of the armchair. That's what maybe some psychiatrists or psychologists would say, because that's what they learned in books. But, seeing as I had a personal experience with it and I have other siblings, not necessarily. I mean, I have 3 siblings and my brothers are not, physically abusive to their spouses. And my sister has a very loving relationship. So not necessarily. That's why I don't really focus on that and look at this as a pattern. Or should I say as something that we need to be concerned, oh, this is going to happen to me. Focus needs to be on self. Focus needs to be on healing yourself and taking those steps to heal, and then you're able to let go of that and the patterns or that familiarity, if you will, kind of, you just let that go. Just send it out there, send it out to the universe somewhere else.
How did you find the power within you to break this pattern and become an inspiration and a coach for others?
Simple. Which is part of my methodology. I learned to connect myself. First of all, I learned to love myself. That's number 1. Second, I learned to connect my mind with my heart and with intuition, or love, should I say. Mind, heart, love, mind, heart, intuition, mind, heart, God, whatever that means to you. It doesn't have to be something in a religious sense, but in a spiritual sense, yes, because spirituality, it shouldn't be a word that we're afraid of. Look, if it's not of the body, it's of the spirit, right? So it's not rocket science. So yeah, I learned to just to connect my heart, my mind, and intuition. And that's a little hard to really explain that, within one. In fact, a lot of times when I coach people, it's process.
One of the main points that you shared in From Truth to Triumph is letting go of self-blame. Do victims of abuse often blame themselves, and how may they let this go?
Well, again, there goes that question of have you really looked at yourself, and have you really loved yourself? But I'm going to say the gist of it is this. When we start letting go of the past and letting go of the stories and letting go of the narrative that we've really accepted in the mind, then we can let go of all of it, including blame. Blame is an emotion. Blame is an emotion that comes from a wounded child, if you will. So, many times I will actually coach people to and this goes far beyond domestic violence. I'm just talking about people that are really harboring things from childhood or from even just an hour ago. Sometimes we harbor things and it stops us in our tracks. It stops us from it's debilitating. It stops us from moving forward and succeeding in life. So once we start to see that see the narrations that are in our mind and start to guard that, that's a whole other thing that I talk about, guarding our thoughts, because that negative, unloving narrative that you let in can become the main source of, the mental summary of yourself.
Something that we did not discuss the last time, and something that just came to my mind, what is the relationship like with the passive parent, the non-abusive parent, after a child has been abused?
Yes and no. That's a good question. So for me, I came to a point where I had to look and see, am I harboring any feelings of like anger toward that parent for not doing what I needed them to do, maybe for not leaving the marriage. Again, I never had blame because back in those days, Victor, no one no one left their husbands. That it just wasn't done. People weren't divorcing like they are today. They're really not. And and truth be told, so there was really no blame. And so this is really, again, environmental. And that was what they're used to, what our parents grew up and their culture. And then, and then here I was. But what I did do is I did do that inquiry, a self-inquiry, and I never really thought it was bothering me until later on in years. I remember, it's a funny story, actually. I was hanging out with my mom and family, and it was just me and my mom, and we were in a swimming pool out east in the Hamptons, and I was proudly announcing that my divorce finally went through, and my poor mom, she wept. She says, "I'm so sorry," and I said, "Why are you upset?" She was upset because she felt all of these years that she was to blame for my choice in marriage. And, I just had such compassion for her. It's really all about compassion, Victor. We need to be, I just wanted to relieve her, and my relieving her pain made mine go away.
Absolutely. Just from personal experience, and without going to my personal details, which aren't necessary for this program, I came to understand later in life that sometimes the passive parent really is broken at the fact that they can't protect their children.
Yes. Is that what happened in your case?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what I learned as well. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And the fact that someone can love someone in spite of the physical activity, the violence or the physical abuse, and love that person as the love of their life, and yet feel helpless in protecting a child is often a great challenge. And so compassion has to be there for the passive parent.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's going to handle it differently. I looked at it as that was not the mom that I was going to be as far as the powerless mom. I was a very, despite what was going on in my marriage, I was extremely protective of my son, like extremely. I was a powerful mom when it came to that. I was powerfully protective.
Last time we talked, and I just wanted to bring this back into the conversation before we take our second break, you had said that your experience with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus taught you a lot of lessons. Let's lighten it up by sharing some of the lessons you learned from the circus. What did you learn from the circus?
Oh, goodness. First of all, I learned how to work the soil, Victor. I mean, I'd never had the opportunity to go away to college and be in a dorm with a bunch of girls. So this was that opportunity. So here I was, and they bring me into the gentleman that picks you up from the airport. There's a whole story to that. I don't know if you remember this in my book. I tell a little bit of the story in my book because I actually arrived very, very ill. But fast forward, I lived in a train car that there were 21 showgirls. I was showgirl number 13. And so I know. So like my room was number 13. My costume, like where I was, it was number 13. My costumes were all labeled number 13, underneath all of my character shoes, my dance shoes was number 13. I was number 13, right? My headset's number 13. What was really, really funny is that, here I am in this train car, and it's like, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever really been through a train car, but you're walking through a train car, and imagine instead of the seats from right to left, in a railroad, like an Amtrak or whatever, instead of the seating right to left, imagine that it's just a hallway with slotted doors, those door slots that slide in, like open, like those are the rooms. And so I am not kidding, I lived in a 3 by 6 foot room. Yeah. And our toilets were in the middle of the train car. Again, a slotted door for the bathrooms. But they were just toilets. In the 3 by 6 room was this bed. It wasn't really a bed. It was like a little 2-inch mattress, if you will, on top of this this board that you lifted, and underneath was storage. And then there was this little sink, like a little vanity, a sink, a vanity, a light. That was it. And I had to make that my home for 1 year. And what I learned, though, was I learned how to survive in those circumstances. I learned how to, and I came from kind of lower middle class. So it's not like I had so much, but this was really like, I thought like, this is not the army that I signed up for. and then I had a shower in the buildings. You had to wear your flip-flops to the building, But what I really, really learned, what was powerful were the cultures that were all from around the world. We had, traveled Bulgarians, Romanians, Polish, Italians, Mexicans, Chinese. It was really insightful learning their cultures and really what made them tick. It was and comparing it to the way we were, in the United States. It was really remarkable.
United Nations in Close Quarters. My guest is Lily Sanders. She's the author of Truth to Triumph, A Spiritual Guide to Finding Your Truth, and also Soul Bread, Daily Affirmations That Feed the Soul. Lily, please tell our listeners how they can find out about you and your work.
Yeah. So you can go to my website, lilysanders.live, LILYSANDERS.LIVE. And I am launching my new podcast called Beyond the Current Situation. And yeah, you can actually go on my website and subscribe there, or it's kind of at a soft launch now. So you can kind of visit me on Facebook and you could subscribe there. And you can also, I really would love people to come just follow me and learn about a lot of my work and really enjoy some live talks on Instagram and Facebook. So Facebook is lilysanders.live and Instagram is Lily_Sanders_author.
And we'll be back with more of Lily after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
The student asks the teacher, "How do I experience transformation?" The teacher replies, "When the student is ready to receive deeper answers, the student then asks, 'How do I know what deeper questions to ask?' And the teacher replies, "When the student decides to commit to a practice inviting transformation, level 2 questions will be revealed." Hi, I'm Tomas Garza, and as a teacher and host, I'm inviting listeners to enroll in the mastery of transformation by joining me on Decide to Transform, your bridge to level 2 answers. Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Lily Sanders. She's the author of Truth to Triumph, A Spiritual Guide to Finding Your Truth, as well as Soul Bread, Daily Affirmations That Feed the Soul. That is a free ebook on her website, lilysanders.live, LILYSANDERS.live. Soul Bread free if you visit her website. Lily, so we were talking about the effects of generational change. We're living in a time with this pandemic that psychologists say could result in what's known as generational trauma. I say, and I believe you would agree, that parents can express to their children optimism, hope, give them new tools during this time that'll become a generational blessing. Do you agree?
Yes, 100%. If you recall, I actually dedicated an entire chapter in Truth to Triumph called Generational Blessings. So I'm all about generational blessings, and breaking that mold for generational blessings. It is 100% a parent's responsibility to show their children love, honor, and respect in all that we do, so that we can experience it, so that they can experience it for themselves. And particularly being in this lockdown during the pandemic, this is really a time to really hone in on that quality time with your child. And if a parent is challenged with their, how do I put this? If they're challenged with their patience with their child or children, or challenged with themselves within the lockdown, that they're unable to see themselves clearly in the parent role, I have 2 words to say: stop it. And I honestly, I know that's like a tough love statement, but stop it. You're the parent. You need to take that responsibility now. You need to show your children love, honor, respect. That was your calling when these children came into your lives. And I know, again, it's tough love, but this is the only way that we can manifest and create generational blessings. If we could do this one by one, we can change lives. During the pandemic and then moving forward after the pandemic, we need to start promoting values as human beings, which can be universal, regardless of our life situations, regardless of this pandemic, regardless of our race or culture, religion, belief systems. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These are the times, especially when we have physical isolation and we're together, and some people are working from home, but those who aren't have additional time now to really focus on bringing the sense of love and awareness of the fact that we're never alone to our children, and giving them quality that might not have been possible prior to this pandemic.
Oh, it's so true. I think about all the parents, you were discussing this as well, where all these parents that even have their adult children home, this is a blessing. And this is where we can really start to make it matter. This is where we can really start to take this current situation, this pandemic, and start using it for powerful transformation, even in your children's life.
Absolutely. I see so many wonderful videos being posted on Facebook and elsewhere of parents playing with their children and having fun and acting things out and just having a ball, and the children are thriving with that.
I know. Look, the bottom line is these kids need to look back and say, oh, remember how much fun we had during that pandemic? That, it's all about feeling love and security and laughter and fun. They don't need to know, all the traumatizing verbiage that's being spread all over, the news and the internet and mainstream media. They don't need to know any of that. They really don't.
Absolutely. There's a term that people sometimes say about unconditional love. Unconditional love. That sounds so difficult. Is it possible to love ourselves unconditionally? And if so, what do you see are the keys to achieving this?
Victor, that's a great question. Yes, you see this all the time. It's almost so hallmark, right? Unconditional love. I kind of turned it a little bit to, I like to call it agape. I like to compare it with agape love. And, that's unconditional no matter what. And I can actually even compare that to the way we love our children, or the way we should love our children unconditionally. And what I mean by that is there's almost that little child within us. I don't know if you recall or remember back in the day. In fact, she had quite an impact on me, Louise L. Hay.
Yes.
And you remember her in the 70s, and she used to talk about the little child, the little child, the inner child. And to be really to be frank, right here with everyone listening, I did not understand what she was talking about. And it used to irritate me. I would be like, what is she talking about? This inner child. Didn't realize until many years later, I had that aha moment that, this is the best way I can describe this to you and our listeners right now. What I found is that all of those things that we've been harboring since childhood, since even being an infant, that we're unaware of, there's all of these fragmented pieces of that little child, that inner child, if you will. Those fragmented pieces that are wounded. And so when we can do our alone time in meditation and look inside, kind of turn that lens inward into the heart and view that and see that inner child and love that inner child. And yeah, as silly as this sounds, almost as if it is disconnected to you, then you can love that inner child that's wounded and be aware and compassionate. There's that word compassion again, that inner child is still wounded and is still carrying that pain. And then you can validate it and love it, and that inner child can let that go. And then it becomes whole with you. Does that make sense? I know it's a little deep and esoteric.
No, not at all. Absolutely. And also in doing so, we're also giving ourselves that self-love that we also love. We also long for.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then if you want to compare that with a child, look, I mean, most moms, it doesn't matter. I say this all the time, is that honestly, your son could do anything in the world. It does not matter. And it's your son. You love him no matter what. That's that agape love. That is that unconditional love. Well, if we can do that with our child, imagine how much more we can do that when we first and foremost can do that with ourselves.
Absolutely. Love starts in the heart, in home, in ourselves. Absolutely. You have a term that you call one thing mentality. What is one thing mentality?
Yeah, the one thing mentality. So, there's been I'm noticing a lot of issues with focus, particularly now during this pandemic. And, as I said earlier, I always believe that what we cognize, we become. And we also are a victim of, if you will, those thoughts that keep kind of knocking at our door. And I talk about like guarding our thoughts. And, and again, we talked earlier in the other segment about those negative, unloving narratives that kind of keep knocking at the door of your mind. And my issue is, or should I say the reason why I talk about this one thing mentality is because when we're asking ourselves, especially now, some people have really had to take a pivot in their careers, let's say. Some people are on furlough. Some people had a business that could no longer, is not really working during this pandemic. Maybe it's that type of business that is more of a hands-on business, or a business that was, temporarily closed down. My point is this. Right now is a time where we need to find out what your one thing is. Because if we don't know what our one thing is, we can't we can't manifest it. And you know how I'm all about manifesting. So, one of the things that I have come to realize is that sometimes people don't know what their one thing is, right? And so if you're in lockdown right now, I would say find your skill set and engage to become really great at it or better at it, become like really master it. And then two is to really start considering how you can serve people with that. And you've heard the saying, you find within, you find yourself when you lose yourself in serving others, right? And I firmly believe that. So we want to start finding out what our one thing is. And that one thing mentality is exactly this. It's doing that one thing and focusing on that one thing and not anything else. Everything else really becomes a distraction. And mostly this is important because, I remember when I started writing my book, Truth to Triumph, I spent several years, several hours a week on it. But then I picked it up and put it down, during the first couple of months. But it wasn't until actually I put a date on the completion of it and a launch date that I took it seriously. And I decided to spend most of my waking hours writing my book.
And we're gonna pick up on this point in the next segment, and it's a very important point. My guest is Lily Sanders. She's the author of Truth to Triumph, A Spiritual Guide to Finding Your Truth. We'll be back with more of Lily after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
During these times of worry, fear, and uncertainty, a calming and soothing voice may help you relax, clear your mind, and help you sleep. This is Victor the Voice Fuhrman, and for the first time, I'm offering my voice for your well-being. I will craft a personal guided meditation to suit your needs. My fees are very reasonable, and I can provide your personalized guided meditation quickly. For more information, please send an email to voice@victorthevoice.com. That's voice@victorthevoice.com. Blessings, my friend.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Lily Sanders. We're talking about Truth to Triumph, a spiritual guide to finding your truth, and all of the work that she does. Lily, in the last segment, I interrupted you because we had to take the break, but you were talking about one thing mentality and the power of focus to change our lives. And you were talking about how you were writing your book, Truth to Triumph, and how you came to that point that that was the one thing you had to be working on.
Yeah, so I started just working on it, in the beginning, several hours a week. But then when I really actually put a date on the completion of it and a launch date, that was when, I decided to spend most of my waking hours writing the book. And it wasn't really until that time that it became my one thing and it became my one focus. And so until that was completed, I considered everything else to be a distraction. So until that one thing was done, everything else was second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, if that makes any sense. And the result was that I completed Truth to Triumph, edited it, and launched it successfully exactly on the date that I set out. And this is pretty much a large part of my methodology in coaching, because the truth is anything we spend less than 25 hours a week on is a hobby. So if you want to reach your goals, you need to focus, discipline, right? And the second thing you need to do is you need to guard your thoughts. And so we talked a little bit about this with guarding the thoughts. And the largest part of our fears and unhappiness and failures and lack of accomplishments are really due to the narrative that's going on in your mind. So when we can guard those thoughts that try and enter in, which is typically fear telling us we can't do something, then we can stay focused on that quote unquote one thing that helps us grow and helps us succeed, because, before we can, do anything though, we have to have that one thing. We have to know what that one thing is, what it is that we want to achieve, what we want to accomplish, and then have that one thing mentality. And then B, we're guarding our thoughts. Very, very important. We're guarding our thoughts so that we do not get distracted, because to me, the discipline boils down to really the one thing, and that is until that one thing is accomplished, this should be your only primary focus. This should be your primary focus. Everything else, second rate. Everything else, distraction. Same thing like, that's the way you start a business. That's the way you do anything. It's the way, even if you want, let's say you want to be a mom. Well, you need to start. Sometimes we do. It's something that you need to plan. So everything has to have, a plan to it. We can't just cognize something without a specific plan, right? We have to have a real plan. And the third key thing is, if I may add, is guarding our time. It's interesting because, I dedicated an entire chapter in my book, Truth to Triumph, entitled it Guard Your Thoughts. And when I wrote this book nearly 3 years ago, and since then, Victor, I have grown even more, as we all do. And I've come to the profound realization that we also need to guard our time. And my son brought to my attention this Roman philosopher. The last name is Seneca. I'll probably botch up the first name, but it's Lucius Seneca. And he describes guarding the time so eloquently. And it took me back because what I found is that in the past 2 years of my life, I really innately did that. I was very particular about how I was spending my time, who I was spending it with, because everything else, everything seemed to be a distraction from what I was trying to accomplish next. Does that make sense? Yeah,
I just want to interject for a second. So you have that one thing mentality, you have that project, that occupation, that focus that you want to devote the most of your time to. But we have cooking, we have cleaning, we have shopping, the other activities. How do you suggest that people segment their time and properly segment that time so that they can maintain the one thing mentality?
Okay, love the question that you asked, because this is what I do when I coach. So I do it in buckets. So let's say your one thing, Victor, is going to be, let's say, writing your book. Yeah. So you're going to put more than 50, you're going to 50% of your waking hours, 50% of your waking hours is going to be in that one bucket, is going to be the book. In the other bucket is the other 50% of your life. That means cooking, cleaning, socializing, your relationship, whatever that may be. Everything else goes in that bucket. And that's what I call, in that bucket, you're counterbalancing the time that you have left within those little balls in that bucket. The only thing is you want to be very careful that you don't leave one ball in there without picking it up for too long, lest it break. You want to make sure that you're spending enough time, but it's really about counterbalancing. I actually I'm one of those people that I do not believe in balance. I think that's BS. There's no such thing as balance. You can't make your one thing happen and spend half of your time with all the other stuff as well. It's just not going to happen. Again, it boils down to that. Is it a hobby, or is this going to be, my main focus and my one thing? Is it a hobby? Is it a career? Right? You can't treat it like a hobby. It has to be your one thing focus, your one thing mentality. And so 50% is the book. And then in the other bucket are all the other balls that you're going to have to counterbalance. And during that time frame, those people that you love, those loved ones, are just going to have to understand and be compassionate toward your goals.
Absolutely. What about there's so many distractions in our world right now. The digital world is a blessing because it allows us to connect and communicate at this time of physical isolation. But it's also could be a curse because I know a lot of people who just can't get off of Facebook, for example, or other distractions. How do you deal with distractions when you do your coaching?
Oh, well, first of all, and let me tell you this about that. Those that really are challenged with staying off of the social media all day, you need to block your time. If you're that attached, give yourself 1 hour a day. If 1 hour a day. And if you need to go on twice a day, then make it a half hour earlier in the day and a half hour later in the day. And look, because there's just so many hours in the day. Again, that Roman philosopher, Seneca, he says, his quote is, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And I always say that, personally, I say that if you don't show up for life, it will pass you by. You need to show up and make it count. And when you consider the hours wasted on the things like social media that are not driving you toward your goal or your one thing, if you will, then you will realize that you haven't, you haven't attained it, but now you realize why you haven't attained it. There is simply no focus. You need to gain that focus. You need to gain that discipline. If you're spending all of this excess time on the things that are not driving you toward your one thing, then it's clear you have no focus, you have no discipline, no plan. So we need to take that shift. It's a powerful shift. It's a critical shift if you want to be successful.
Absolutely. I know in business, I used a device called the day timer where I had every one of my days was plotted out on a calendar, and with each hour assigned to whatever the focus or attention had to be during that hour, be it a customer, a meeting of some kind, a research of some kind. Do you suggest that people do that? Do we need some type of a day timer?
I don't. I'm going to tell you why. Put it very simple. I don't believe in lists. I think lists is only encouraging people to multitask, and multitasking is failing at many things at the same time. I think you need to do your one thing. You're going to block out, let's say, 5 hours a day. That's working on your book. The other hours, then you could start putting in your things. Okay, the other hours, okay, you're going to cook, right? So you're going to work on your book, let's say. You're going to do your podcast, let's say, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. You're going to work on your book from 12 noon to 5 p.m. 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. You're going to prepare dinner and chat with your wife or whatever that may be. But you've got to let go of the lists and just your list is your one thing. The other things are all secondary. And what you'll find is, what's interesting is what you'll find is, especially when people start getting back into the swing of things with a different back into the life where they find that they're back out of the pandemic and they're dropping off their child to this or that, or they're feeling overwhelmed, that super mom, what you'll find is that when you start to just focus on the one thing and then put everything else in that bucket, you'll find that there's those other things that you were doing either become easier or you wind up not even finding the need to do it. And what I mean by that is, some of these career moms that I coach, I'm like, why? Why do you have to pick up? And why do you have to, make this and why do you have to do that? And I'll give you an example. Start delegating those extra things that are taking you away from yourself and your family. Maybe ask your husband to pick up today. Maybe ask your husband to bring in dinner. Maybe ask another parent to drive to carpool with you. Whatever it is, I'm just putting out like scenarios. But you'll find that the things that you were thinking and that you were doing, thinking that, oh, you're super mom or super dad, is not necessary.
Sage advice from Lily Sanders. Lily, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, your books, and all this wonderful work that you do.
Yeah. Okay. So you could find out, of course, my website, lilysanders.live, Lily Sanders, SANDERS.LIVE. And definitely come find me on Instagram. Follow me. There's a lot of insight there. Lily_Sanders_author. And then also definitely find me on Facebook. Facebook, my handle is lilysanders.live. And, I just want to put in closing that when we really turn our attention in, and we really trust that attention is the translator, if you will, of your intuition, of your mind, of your heart, then we can turn, that attention in. Our wisdom really becomes quite remarkable. And from that point, how we choose to experience every situation in life, including this pandemic, becomes super significant destinations that will help us live life at our best and succeed.
Lily Sanders, thank you for joining us and sharing this wonderful advice.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.